are the key elements as to how a judge or how the statute works when it comes to child support?
Child support is based on a formula. It's an income shares model. So the two biggest factors with child support are going to be.
My name is Katie VanDeusen from Sterling Hughes, and we're here for our podcast today. It's Illinois Family Law, and joining me today is our Senior Associate, Ryan Shope. Thanks for joining me today, Ryan.
Of course, excited to be here. I've never been on a podcast before.
Well, I'm glad this will be your first opportunity. So today we're going to be talking about child support and a mother's income and kind of delving a little bit deeper into income for child support and what that entails. So thank you for joining me, and let's get right into it, Ryan. So when it comes to child support in the state of Illinois, what are the key elements as to how a judge or, how the statute works when it comes to child support?
So in Illinois, child support is based on a formula. It's an income shares model. So the two biggest factors with child support are going to be each parent's income level and then the parenting time allocation. Specifically the number of overnights that each parent is exercising with the child or children per year.
So is it safe to say that like a common misconception that could exist out in the world is, hey, I'm the primary wage earner, I'm the dad, I'm the only one who's paying child support. Is that correct or accurate?
I think it's definitely a misconception to say that being the dad, you're going to be the one paying child support. It's more so based on, like I said, each parent's income level. Now, the income shares model is going to be split proportionally. So based on the proportion of each parent's income, that's how the split of child support is determined.
And is it also fair to say, Ryan, that it's based on number of overnights? Do you see in a lot of cases where people are literally fighting over, the calendar and marking off the number of overnights that they're asking for because that significantly impacts what they're going to be either paying or receiving in child support?
Yep, definitely. Unfortunately, the financial issues and the parenting time schedule are things that are supposed to be treated completely separately in the process. But I do see it happen very often where a parent finds out that the parenting time schedule affects the child support calculations. And so all of a sudden you see a parent who maybe wasn't very involved with their children previously, all of a sudden wants a 50-50 parenting time schedule because of that effect on the child support obligation.
Yeah. Or do you also see sometimes maybe the primary parent who maybe wants to maximize the amount of support they're getting might withhold overnights or say, you know what, I'm not in agreement with giving you any overnights because they want to maximize that monthly support amount they're receiving as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely you can see both sides using that formula as a bargaining chip and a tool in the process.
Absolutely. And then, Ryan, in your experience, what is that kind of cutoff point? So we're talking about overnights and number of overnights, but is there a certain cutoff point, and how does that exactly work?
Yep. So the cutoff point is going to be 146 overnights, which equates to about 40% of the overnights per year. So if a parent is exercising anywhere under 146 overnights, whether that's 0, 145, or any number in between, that child support obligation is going to be higher and it's going to be the same regardless of the number. Once you get to 146 overnights, though, that's when you start to see a reduction in the child support obligation, and it kind of goes on a sliding scale. The closer you get to 50-50, you'll start to see more and more of a reduction.
Okay. And then in terms of income, I also know based on experience, these guidelines or this formula is based on a combined household income of $500,000 or less. So once you start getting up past that kind of threshold, what does a judge typically do? Is it kind of like a free for all?
Yep. So once you get above that threshold, the judge is kind of just going to start looking at the child's needs and expenses and what's reasonable based on those needs of the child and the resources of each parent.
Absolutely. That's definitely been my experience as well. And I think the key too is when it comes to child support, the judge is looking at if this household had remained intact, meaning, both parents aren't proceeding with a divorce. What type of lifestyle would that child live? So, a lot of times I feel like people will say, well, we're divorced. Like, I don't need to worry about paying, mom or dad anymore because I got a raise and that's mine. I'm divorced from the person. But I think in all reality, we need to really be honest with that client to say, no, technically the benefit is to the child, not the other party. And even if you're divorced and you're earning significantly more, that income is income from all sources. And even if it's post divorce, or post separation, if it's a paternity case, that's all fair game. And the judge is going to view it all as income for support purposes when it comes to a child.
Yep. Absolutely. The child support is meant to be a right of the children. And just like you said, if you end up getting a raise and start earning more income, or you start receiving income from another source, that child support obligation is always going to be modifiable based on your new income level.
Definitely. Speaking of income, let's also talk through, what affects child support and how a judge views income, or actually how the statute treats income technically. So, can you tell me a little bit about what your experience has been with like one-time retirement distributions or maybe sale proceeds from a house? Like, are those actually treated as income for support purposes or not?
Yeah, so the judge is going to be looking at income from all sources, but when it comes to sources of income that are received on a one time, that's typically not going to be included in your income. So like you said, if you receive a one-time distribution from a retirement account or you sell your house, things like that are typically not going to be included. It's going to be things that you're receiving on a consistent basis as a source of income.
Okay. And then to that same point, like consistency, it sounds like it's got to be to some extent like recurring. So, are there any examples that you've seen in your practice where recurring payments or payouts could be viewed as income for support purposes?
Yeah, one thing that you do see pretty frequently is a lot of times parents will be receiving financial support, maybe from their parents or other family members or friends. And if that's something that you are receiving on a regular and consistent basis, then you do have exposure there with respect to the judge treating that as income to you for purposes of calculating child support.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Good to know because I'm sure a parent is thinking, well, I'm going through a divorce. I need some extra help financially. I'm going to accept this gift or maybe these monthly payments or even an annual type of payment. And that could really end up hurting them in the long run if it's not treated as a loan or borrowed funds versus a gift.
Absolutely.
Interesting. And then in terms of income, a couple of last questions on this topic. So, in your practice, if someone is not earning what they should, or let's say someone knows they're going to be getting a divorce or they can kind of see this coming, and we all, are aware of divorce planning, what if they end up losing their job, if they end up not passing over a promotion that they could have gotten, or let's say they decide that they just don't want to work anymore and they want to retire. What's your experience with how courts treat those issues? What do they do?
Yeah, so my experience has been that the judge is always going to expect you to maintain a level of income that you are capable of maintaining based on, your education history, your work history, all those types of things. So if you are voluntarily underemployed or not employed just because either you don't want to work or you're trying to avoid a child support obligation, the judge has complete authority to impute income to you at a level that you are capable of earning because of the fact that, like we mentioned, child support is meant to be a right of the children to be financially supported by their parents. So you're not going to get away with just being voluntarily underemployed.
Definitely. That's great to know. And just a good thing to keep in mind if you have concerns that the other party is either going to quit their job, take a lower paying job, or somehow retire prematurely, that, you as an attorney can help support them through that. And they've got an avenue moving forward to make arguments to the judge to properly set income for support purposes. That's great to know.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
So, well, we're at the end of our time. Thanks everyone for joining us to talk through child support, income, and a mother's income and how that impacts things, as well as all the other details that Ryan shared with us and the guidance that was provided today. So it's not really based on gender roles. It's based on income and overnights with the children, as well as how much a person is either earning or their income from all sources. Thanks for joining us today, Ryan.
Thanks.
Income and overnights drive your child support obligation, but when custody gets contested, suddenly there are new players in your courtroom making decisions about your children. Guardian ad litems and child representatives can override everything you think you know about custody, and most parents don't understand the difference until it's too late. Here's what determines who gets appointed in your case.